gamers.
That one got me. A huge thank you to Civil Savages and Sometimes You for providing with my first ever review copy. I really appreciate it. This is a review of the Nintendo Switch version. I would have loved to add Norman's Great Illusion to my Don't Overlook series, so it pains me to say that it fails in almost every way. Norman's Great Illusion tells the story of an engineer, his wife, and his daughter. Maybe his name is Norman, I don't know. It quickly becomes clear that their fictional country is one where unchecked capitalism, xenophobia, and a totalitarian government make life hell for the average person. Drawing inspiration from Papers, Please, gameplay revolves around earning money for your family and making moral choices, ultimately finding one of several endings that reflect the decisions made. Or do they? Every day in NGI follows the same routine. You get out of bed, put on your suit, and eat breakfast with your family. You and your wife will exchange some stilted exposition while your daughter usually says nothing. The wife has fully bought into the government propaganda. Election day is a holiday, and whatever the smart man on the radio says must be true. This is something that I actually really liked. There are usually two options in the choices you make. You either support the government or you think for yourself. The engineer's dialogue changes to reflect the choices you made. The wife, however, remains the same. Agree with the government and you get a disturbing insight into the lives of a brainwashed family. Go against the regime and you'll experience the story of a man losing touch with his wife as he starts to doubt the politicians his spouse reveres. At least that's the idea. While we're at home, let's look at the first set of issues I have with this game. There is no flavor text anywhere. Despite being fairly large, the apartment has very few interactables. You can put on and take off your suit at your closet, turn on the TV, sit on a variety of chairs, and open the fridge. I'm not asking for much. When looking into the fridge, have the engineer say he's looking forward to a cold beer after work. Hang up a picture of his younger brother and deliver a quick line about how proud he is of his siblings' military endeavors. This honestly just comes across as lazy. It would have taken 20 minutes to add some backstory and character to the whole family. You can't even talk to wife and daughter once they leave the table, though I don't think you're missing much. They just kind of walk around and sit down in random places. I doubt they have any stories to share. Would it have been too much work to give the girl a 2-frame animation of playing with a doll? Literally anything but sitting there and breathing in perfect unison with her mother, which is creepy as hell.
Also, Cat is like 3 times bigger than your child.
Well, but that's realistic. I mean, Leon is almost as big as my youngest brother. Couldn't you at least make wife turn on the damn TV before taking up the entire couch? This lack of interactivity only gets worse whenever the family makes plans during dinner. Wife tells you to take a bath and relax, but you can't even open the door to the bathroom. Daughter is excited to play board games. Then she goes to her room by herself, sits on her chair, and does nothing. If the devs were unwilling to animate bathwater or code a basic game of Sorry, why in the world would they draw attention to that fact? There are also some absolutely egregious perspective errors. Whenever a character sits down, they are displayed at the topmost layer. This means that walking up from below will cause your upper body to be placed between the potato and its couch. What? Opening the closet and fridge will also make them change layers, causing you to appear in front of or behind them in nonsensical ways. This is incredibly basic stuff. I've never made a commercial game, and even I know how to fix these issues. The game has been out on PC for a year, and they're either unable or unwilling to patch these distracting bugs. Let's get to the first bit of gameplay. Driving your car involves doing the same basic QuickTime event over and over again. Simply press the button whenever the bar is centered and the center is green. Fail the QTE and the car takes 1 point of damage. You'll have to mess up a lot to actually cause your ride to break down. But when it does, it'll cost you a lot of money. This minigame never changes, except sometimes the center is smaller and harder to hit. Where a better game would choose a mechanic that in some way mimics the action it represents, this one just seems completely arbitrary. If an uninspired QTE simulates navigating downtown traffic, then Flappy Bird simulates space travel. A few button presses later, you'll arrive at work. Work consists of, and get this, doing basic math. Yes, you play as an engineer. Yes, engineers do a lot of math. But this is what you spend most of your time on. 2 + 2 × 2.
Which, funnily, you got wrong the first time.
Again, this just feels lazy. Engineering is inherently about problem solving, so this is a painfully missed opportunity. Imaginary game time. Picture this. The government wants you to design a truck. You get a budget to buy and assemble parts. Later, they want you to repurpose it into a military vehicle. Will you focus on armor to keep the people inside alive, or will you add more powerful weaponry? Your creation will be used by the army, so hundreds are built and deployed at once. Did you make sure it's fuel efficient? If you didn't, your country might be running out of gas halfway through the war. It's not fair to judge a game by what it isn't, so I won't deduct any points for it not coinciding with my fantasy product. I just wanted to express how disappointing it is to instead be faced with third-grade math. You'll be using a number pad to punch in the solutions. To emulate the stress of a tight deadline, you only have limited time to solve each equation. Hilariously though, you can just pause the game. The menu will cover up the problem, but memorizing 3 numbers isn't hard. This completely defeats the purpose of the entire exercise. It is, however, convenient for the players, so it's by no means all bad.
Tyga's on a roll here.
Oh,
Breathing.
as in she's rolling around?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Once you got through your horribly boring workday, you drive back home. If you made 2 math mistakes or fewer, you get a bonus. If you made 5 mistakes, you have to pay a penalty. Okay, another small bit of praise. This game really wants to tell you that capitalism is bad. Even when earning a bonus every day, you don't make enough money to pay for everything. So despite being a specialist worker with an excellent work ethic, you're slowly using up your savings. Only once you get a promotion will you be able to break even. This is the only way this story is reflected in the gameplay. While out and about, you'll face the same choices in the same order every playthrough. Do you help the police catch a guy? Do you report your neighbor's suspicious activity? When there's a strike at the factory, whose side are you on? This is where Norman's Great Illusion becomes even shallower than it already was. To my knowledge, there are 2 decisions that might net you some cash and 1 that may cost you some. None of them meaningfully impact the story. The developers did not understand the game they're aping. In Papers, Please, all moral choices you make happen during gameplay. You have the power to completely change someone's life with a simple stamp on their passport. You have to make these calls during your shift. The clock is ticking as you dig through documents while listening to the plight of the vulnerable, desperate person in front of you. You might be able to let 1 or 2 blacklisted people in, but helping them will result in warnings, pay cuts, and eventually unemployment. If you didn't have to make these tough choices, the core mechanics would only ever be stressful and annoying. By separating decisions and story from gameplay, Norman's Great Illusion made gameplay a meaningless, repetitive chore and reduced decisions to uninspired dialogue options. Most choices are completely meaningless and only influence 1 or 2 lines of dialogue. There were 2 events that only happened because of my previous decisions. I think they consisted of conversations, but get this. The developers were so profoundly incompetent that me pressing the button once both opened and closed the dialogue box of whoever I was talking to, leaving me only with the engineer's half of the text. The game touts 7 endings, which is technically true, though they only consist of a still image and 2 or 3 sentences. None of these endings take any previous events into account. There's only 2 endings you can actually work towards, and they suck. I don't mean they're sad, they're just lame. While you were gone, men in uniform took your family away. Whose soldiers are these? Why are they taking your family? No idea. What happens to you? Not a clue. Who cares? This game doesn't. What's even dumber is the fact that 5 of the 7 endings are accessible when you run out of money. Your actions before that do not matter. Whether I went bankrupt on day 2 or day 20, I could choose between the exact same endings. I don't recommend Norman's Great Illusion, so I will spoil it. If you want to experience the game yourself, hit subscribe for weekly reviews and leave now. Once your savings are spent, you can choose between joining the volunteer police force, where you can either follow or refuse orders, robbing a store, burning down your boss's house, and joining a Marxist group. 4 of these choices get you killed. The only ending you and your family survive together is joining the Marxists. Working with them, you eventually manage to create a communist government. Just out of nowhere. No explanation as to how you did it or what it entailed. This is where Norman's Great Illusion fails spectacularly. It is not interested in actually discussing difficult politics or the hard choices people living under a brutal government have to make. You would think a game like this would include a proper ending for people who only choose to comply with a morally corrupt regime to protect their family. Something that at least acknowledges that the world is not black and white. You do survive if you trip into becoming an officer in the upcoming war, but that's all the info you get. The only way to win is by losing all of your money and embracing communism. When it comes to capitalism, I guess the only winning move is not to play. I would consider this pretty clever, but considering how sloppily and lazily this game was assembled, I wouldn't be surprised if this was a complete accident. Norman's Great Illusion... Gesundheit. Norman's Great Illusion is not worth playing. There is no originality or cleverness to any of it. I requested a review copy because the concept of navigating the political gray of a totalitarian government sounded fascinating, but there was no gray. There was only communism or death. This is not a game about choices. This is not a game about a family struggling to survive. This is just communist propaganda. But it is not as bad as it could be. While I personally disagree with the very concept of communism, I appreciate and respect the fact that Norman's Great Illusion never condones acts of violence or terrorism. It instead emphasizes peaceful protest and political engagement. And hey, maybe you think communism is the way to go. If you do, you might get some enjoyment out of this one. Everyone else, though, should just replay Papers, Please. Or Monster Jaunt. Just go play Monster Jaunt. So that's what a negative review feels like. Well, make sure you subscribe for a new review every week. Most of them are positive, I promise. I'm going to keep an eye on developer Civil Savages. Their next game, Piroku? Piroku. Looks super fun, and I think it'll be right up my alley. I just hope they don't take this review personally. Yeah, again, once I get to 50 subscribers, I'll become accredited on Keymailer, which would help a lot on providing more reviews like this, where I can tell you whether a game is garbage or not. So, if you enjoyed this review, please subscribe, share with your friends. If anybody is thinking about buying Norman's Great Illusion, show them this review to tell them to stop being so silly. And, okay, I have to get out of this room. It's killing me. Whew.